Hello everyone, I am going to review, test, do a full face of makeup using Danessa Myricks' new Groundwork palette. This full name is Groundwork Defining Neutrals palette for eyes, brows, face, lips, basically for everything. That's what it's marketed as, providing you. It's been a really long time since I've been excited about any sort of palette, as you can probably see from the lack of palette reviews on my video. But this one, I feel like it says it's gonna fill a different kind of niche in the beauty community. So I'm going to show you, apply it for you, work through it with you, all that kind of stuff. Thank you so much for being a subscriber to the channel. There's also an account on Instagram if you want to go follow over there. And let's go ahead and jump into what this palette is about and if it really serves that purpose. I will link my necklace and earrings in the description box below. They're Amazon affiliate links. These are very affordable. And this palette, of course, I will also link. It's available through Sephora. So the box it comes in, it retails for $65. You get 10 different shades, but each shade is divided into 2 formulas. So technically you get 20 pans in the palette. So what is this palette all about? I'm gonna read directly from the company claims for you to see what the marketing says it should do. It's marketed as a multi-use talc-free palette with velvety pomades and coordinating oil-absorbing shaping powders that easily define eyes, brows, cheeks, and lips. It says that the formulation is free of parabens, formaldehydes, mineral oil, retinol palmitate, hydroquinone, and a bunch of other things. The formula is gluten-free and cruelty-free. So going back to what the palette is supposed to give you, this everyday all-over face essentials palette with curated neutral shades for all skin tones features buildable colors for eyes and face to create soft, bold results with a velvet satin finish, 1 palette, 2 unique textures for each of the 10 shades. Velvet Pomade is a high-performance, lightweight pomade that applies with ease. Shape and Fix Powders in color coordinating tones is infused with Upsolite to control oil and smooth texture while locking in shape and definition. Your go-to palette that makes it easy to do makeup like a professional. So basically you have a pomade type formula that you can put down and then you can set it with the powder formulation. And like it says, it's supposed to be able to be used pretty much all over the face for nearly a complete look. I do so appreciate the marketing images for the product, and honestly for the brand, it's marketed as an inclusive brand, and you can see from the colors, the tones, the depth of the colors, from the models that are used, just everything. If you look at the website or even just on Sephora, the promotional images, you can see that this brand is looking to be inclusive, is creating shades that are more inclusive than we typically honestly still see with most brands. On Sephora, they have this little badge that says Black owned at Sephora. Oh, last thing, the formula is fragrance free. So my goal in coming into this is to kind of work through it with you, use the palette, figure out which shades go where and how to use it and if it works well. So let's go ahead and jump into applying these formulations and these colors. Got on my super chunky headband. This is what my skin looks like after applying skincare and sunscreen. The fantastic products that I have been consistently using lately, Dear Klairs Unscented Toner. It's called the Supple Preparation Unscented Toner. Absolutely hydrating and just plumping to the skin. This vitamin C product from Matter of Fact, which is now sold at Sephora. This is the 20% L-ascorbic acid and ferulic acid maritime pine brightening and firming serum. Very potent vitamin C, very stable product. I talk more in depth about these in my last video, so if you want more details on that, go check that video out. On my neck down to my chest, I've been using La Roche-Posay's Anthelos 50 SPF Plus. This I actually purchased in Europe. I'll find the closest equivalent to you and link that. For everything that I use in the video, I'll link in the description box below. They are most likely affiliate links, or YouTube has this thing where you can click on the products in the video. It shows up as a little tag at the bottom of the video, I think. On my face, Such a beautiful formula that I've talked about before in other videos. This is First Aid Beauty's Weightless Liquid Mineral Sunscreen, SPF of 30. Has a beautifully thin liquid texture, almost like a liquid serum-y texture with sort of a dimethicone finish to it, without being completely matte, as you can see. And the tint is darker, which I really like. It doesn't make my skin overall look darker, but it is much better at combating the white cast. You know how a lot of tinted sunscreens, they're tinted, but it still has sort of a grayish finish to it. This does not have that. It feels completely weightless and skin-like. Absolutely fantastic formula that they've created there. So I'm gonna do, what I need to do is foundation and concealer. I'm gonna start with a new concealer that I've been testing that I've fallen in love with because it is such a good under eye concealer, especially if you, like me, are getting older and you have tried so many under eye concealers that you used to use, but that now get dry and patchy and crusty under the eyes just because your skin's aging. This is Sephora's Bright Future Gel Serum Concealer, and I use the shade 6 Madeline. Some of the shades are already sold out because this is on sale. It's only like $7 or $8 total. Go and snag this before it sells out. I'm assuming they're not going to continue making it, so I'm gonna show you what this looks like under the eye. I put it just in the corner there, and then I press it in with an angled brush. Whatever remains, I sweep onto the outer corner. We're really concentrating on the inner corner because that's where most of the darkness is. And then I go back in with my finger just to press it into the skin, kind of give it some heat to melt it into the skin, make it super smooth. I wear this all day, and at the end of the day, it doesn't show any signs of dryness or crepiness. So I've already bought a backup of this. So there you go. I'm going to apply Makeup Forever's HD foundation. They call it something different now, but the shade that I'm using is 120, which is equivalent to Y245. I'm gonna use a dense brush like this. I love this foundation because it gives me good coverage while still looking really skin-like. Makeup Forever has great products that fulfill that role. Let's see, covered up my spots there pretty well. And I'm setting with Rare Beauty's setting powder. Beautiful, beautiful setting powder. My only gripe is I do wish the sifter were different. It's a sifter that has a panel that moves back and forth, so it exposes just a little bit, which means the powder only comes out of one small portion of this thing, and that makes it hard for me to get an even layer on a brush. So I wish they would just have a sifter that covers the whole jar, so just coming out of one side of it. So I just did one half of my face here because I just want you to see. See, it's a natural matte finish. It takes down that shine without looking completely flat. It's really pretty. Let's get into it. So when you open the palette, this is what you first see. There's a full-size mirror in the lid. So you got your 10 shades that are divided into a larger pan and a smaller pan next to it, but with technically the same color. The larger pan is going to be that Velvet Pomade formula, and then this smaller pan is going to be more of that setting powder formula. So I'll be very frank, when I first looked at and received this palette, I wasn't sure how it was supposed to be used. So I'm gonna read to you the description from the company and then kind of give you my take on it, and then we'll actually experiment. The instructions from the company say that you can lift, fill, line, shape, sculpt, and set your eyes, brows, face, and lips, either with a brush or finger application. First, you're supposed to use that larger pan, that's the Velvet Pomade formula, to shape and define. And then you are supposed to use the Shape and Fix powders to set what you've already placed with that previous formula. Although you can use either formula on its own too if you want to. So for example, if you want to sculpt the face, it suggests that you use the Velvet Pomade formulas, and it says a fluffy angled brush to apply to cheekbones, jawline, temples, and then you can set that formula with the Shape and Fix powders. Same thing with the brows. You can fill it in with the pomade formula, then set it with the powder formula. And you're supposed to be able to essentially create a full face look with just this one palette. I guess I should say when it comes to the colors, with color makeup, because obviously the foundation and concealer and things like that you can't do with this palette or mascara. Now, my only hesitation, I believe that just from looking at the shades that you should be capable of doing that if you're gonna do a brown toned neutral look. Obviously, if you want a colorful look, you can't do it with this palette. But my only hesitation when I read the description was, well, for me, just for me, I can't use any of these shades on my lips. I did see in the promo videos some people having, I think, Core on their lips. I think some of these shades will absolutely work for women of color or men of color, and they look absolutely stunning and beautiful. It's just because I have lighter skin, it's not gonna really work on my skin tone, but maybe we'll experiment with Core. Otherwise, I may have to deviate from a completely full face of makeup by using some other shade of lip product, but we'll see. Now, when I hear pomade, I think of something that is like a pomade, like almost Vaseline type of texture to it. So when I got the palette and I actually looked at it and these look all like powders, I was a little bit surprised. So I want to feel what the formula feels like, and then okay, so it feels interesting. What a unique, oh, wow. Okay, so let me explain what's been happening in my brain. So when I first felt it, it felt like just a very silky, soft powder. As the formula is warming up, it is feeling more like a cream. Not quite there. It still feels like half cream, half powder. And when I actually apply it to my lids, it really does feel, because it has a little bit of a tug to it, it's not gliding like an actual powder. I've never felt a formula like this, ever. Which is so hard to do nowadays with makeup. I mean, everyone's done pretty much everything. So I'm just putting down the shade Sandstone in that Velvet Pomade formulation down on the lids. And for me, given how this feels, it's gonna act almost like a primer base. Are you able to see that little indent in there? I'm not sure from my finger if you can see that. So it's 100% not just a silky powder formula. It's something different. So that is done. I guess I want to do, because I don't want to set this, normally you would use translucent powder as a full base, but I don't want to do that yet because I want to use the other pomades to create a full look before I set anything. I also want to show you a couple pans. Do you see that pan up close that has, I don't know if they're fibers or little plastic things. You can see it even better on the pomade formula, the pan on that black one, and a little bit on the one next to it. It's not glitter because I know none of these shades are glittery, and when I touch it, they get removed. I'm gonna scrape it off of these pans because I don't want to put that on my eyes. So can you see on that pan where I removed it, but on the border you can see those little flakes are still there. Not entirely sure what that's about. I'm gonna go in with the very next shade over, that's Desert. I'm using a fluffy brush, but it's a synthetic, a slightly denser brush. I feel like you can't use a completely powder brush, fluffy powder brush with this formula because it definitely has more tug and body to it than just a pure powder. So even though the instructions said fluffy angled brush, I don't know, I would use something that you may more typically use for a cream formula, maybe a liquid formula. I guess we can experiment. Here is a more fluffy angled brush. I'll go in with the shade over Mirage to see. Yeah, you see, it's having a hard time even picking up the product with this kind of super fluffy brush. I mean, the nice thing about it, and the company does say that, is that you can do a very natural, subtle sheer look, or you can build this up to be really dramatic. I'm gonna go in with Bark, which is this shade here, to define the outer V. And to define the crease. Okay, so now I've applied all the pomade shades that I think I want to apply. So I guess we're going to go back in and do the same technique, but with the Sculpt and Line formula. I'm not going to work backwards, but I'm going to start with putting the powders on the crease first. So taking a fluffy brush, going in with Mirage first, and just doing the corresponding shades basically in the powder formula to set everything. I'm guessing that if you want a more sheer look, you just use one of the formulas. And I did a mix of Desert and Mirage, so just using that to set the crease or define the crease. Then using Bark for more definition, and then the outer V. Buff out some of those edges just with a clean fluffy brush. And with a flat dense brush, putting sandstone in the powder formula on top of the lid to set. And back in just a little bit with Bark. With the defining shade Desert, or the defining formula in the shade Desert, I'm gonna go really narrowly just under the lower lash line. And then to line the eyes, I'm going to use both the Pomade formula in Sculpted and I'm just gonna call it the powder formula. It's just easier to call one pomade and one powder. So taking a really fine angled liner brush, putting the Pomade formula down first. So you can see how the sculpted pan on that Pomade formula is deformed. So it's not a straight powder. Okay, with the sculpted powder formula, I'm just setting the exact same line. Okay, that's pretty much my eye makeup done. I'm gonna go ahead and apply one of my favorite mascaras. This is the Maybelline The Falsies Surreal Mascara. I did a whole review application full day wear test video on this, and I've continued to wear it, so I'll link that for you if you want to go see more in-depth review. Oh, before I put mascara on the other eye, I guess I should show you up close what the finished eye look looks like. Okay, now for what I think is kind of the more exciting part, is to do the rest of the face. What shade should I use for my brows? My brows are very dark, but I don't ever color match with my brows because then it looks crazy. I'm gonna try, I know this looks really light, but I'm gonna try Chiseled, this shade here, because it's pretty gray toned. So I'm gonna Using the Pomade formula first. That's the Pomade put down there on that side. Definitely more on the subtle side. And go ahead in with the powder side. I do have some gaps here, so I'm going to concentrate on those. Oh, nice. Yeah, and then kind of just sweep in to fill. I'm happy with that. It went faster than I anticipated. Very nice. I like that a lot. Okay, contouring the face. I'm a little scared. You know, I feel like I do wish there were a more bronze toned. Like these two shades up here have that yellow tone to them. The other shades are, I feel like, too dark. And this shade is too orangey. I wish there were really more like a shade that you could bronze with. And even for sculpting and contouring, I think I'll do my nose because that has, I'll do more dramatic contouring there is fine. So I'll use Sculpted. We're gonna start with the Pomade formulation. I'm gonna go in with a more dense brush. Yeah, you see, that's, I don't know, on my skin tone, that's pretty dark. Okay, I'm going to buff that out. Now, I will say, you know, she thought this through because this powder version is not so dark and dramatic. I'm gonna guess in anticipation of scenarios that are similar to this. No, that comes off way too dark. Yeah, definitely gonna have to remove that. Okay, well, I was about to say that the powder is way lighter, but on the skin, it came off as, let's try that again. Wow, that's kind of strange. That's what it looks like in the pan, this one way at the end. But it comes off much darker than what I see in the pan. Well, then I take back what I said because this powder shows up much more like what the Pomade version looks like in the pan. So maybe it was not intended to be, yeah, you see? Oh my gosh, this is, yeah, I gotta take this off. Okay, buffing that out with my foundation brush, which hopefully puts a little foundation back while taking that color off. Okay, so maybe I will try Chiseled, which looks much lighter in the pan. I mean, Sculpted in Pomade form, I think worked just fine. Was kind of on the dramatic side. Chiseled in powder form. Yeah. Still pretty dark for my personal taste, but definitely, definitely is more workable. Stone is super gray tone, but I want to see what. Yeah, it is super gray tone, so it's too gray for me to sculpt with. Maybe Chiseled is really my only option. Even that is pretty gray toned. Yeah, and I think Sculpted is unfortunately just too dark for me personally. Obviously, will work beautifully for people with deeper skin tones. And then colors like Mirage and Desert are great for bronzing, but not necessarily for sculpting. And maybe I take back my other argument. Maybe Mirage and Desert are perfectly fine bronzing colors, at least for me. So I think I'll stick with Chiseled and try to contour with Chiseled. Going with a really narrow and dense brush to go in with Chiseled, the Pomade formula. And I'm being light-handed because I'm a little apprehensive. This is very gray toned. which I do want my contours to be more gray toned as opposed to bronzy toned, but for me this is a little too gray toned for my taste. In an ideal world, I mean ideal world, I mean this will work, I think. It's just not my preference. So hopefully you can see, it is subtle, but on this side, putting down sculpted. You can see the difference between that side and that side. Yeah, you can see it's just a little gray, which if it's too gray, it just makes you look sickly. Take an angled fluffy brush and try to get in that narrow. That's the other issue, is the pans are super narrow on the powder side, which is fine when you're doing an eye look because your brushes are going to be pretty small, but a little harder for larger planes of the face. For the top of the forehead, I do want more of a bronzing shade. So just with the powder side, I'm gonna mix Desert and Mirage. And then the shades Core are pretty yellow toned. Maybe I can get away with using that as a blush. Let's try it. That's what we're here for, right? And I think I'm gonna stick just to the pomade on this one because I don't want super intense coloration for this shade on my cheeks. Actually, I take that back. What I'm gonna do, well, first let me show you. So this is Core, just the pomade kind of applied. I don't know how much, I mean, it's pretty subtle. I didn't try to press into the pan very hard because I was trying to keep it subtle. I will also say that for this one, it looks like it's sealing just a little bit. So I don't know if you can see that. But what I'm gonna do to control the intensity of the powder side of it is I'm gonna use a fan brush. This is actually a pretty dense fan brush. I have more sparse ones that you can also use if you really wanna be more cautious, and this also is great because it's the only real face fan that will fit into these narrow brush pans. Brush pans? Why did I say that? That will fit into the makeup, the powder pans. That's what I was trying to say. Yeah, so this is actually very, very pretty with the subtle application and buildup. Lovely shade. For the cheeks, obviously more of a bronzy look. Okay, so this only has the pomade applied in Core, and this has both the pomade and the powder applied. So that turned out actually much more cohesive than I was a little bit worried about that. Now, the lips. This is the part I am most skeptical about. Here's what Harvest looks like swatched. See, on my, I mean, unless I'm going for that super deep brown lip look, which I'm not, I don't think that I can pull that off. Maybe if I want to go for an orange toned look, I'll go back to Core, that pomade side. Ooh, on my lips, this is looking yellow orange, which is really not a flattering tone for my skin. That's a really subtle application of it. Actually, from far away, I don't know, you tell me. Does this shade work? for my skin tone in this look. I don't know. I'm a little skeptical. I think I'm gonna resort to probably putting another lip color on my lips. I'll keep it on theme with more of a burnt orange color. This is one of L'Oreal's infallible lip colors, lip color rouges. What shade is this? 446i Amaze. Swatched all of these in videos for you, so if you want to see the full range of these, you can check that out. This can be a pretty bold lip color, so I'm going to keep it really, really thin layer. I think that goes pretty well. All right, so there is the completed face of makeup. Up close. Cheeks, eyes, lips, contour, zoomed out, completed look. All right, so overall, here are my thoughts. I think this is a wonderful palette. I really appreciate having in one palette, which A, makes travel convenient, and B, just makes economic sense in terms of the number of shades you're getting. When it comes to an eye look, you're gonna be able to do a neutrals look with just this one pan. And I don't even mean that in the sense that I would say with some other palettes where I'm saying in terms of the powder eyeshadows, you can make a whole look. No, you can do your liner with this also, and in addition to the whole look, and you can do your brows. So everything from here to here, like in between here, you're gonna be able to do with this palette very easily, assuming that you don't want any bright colors. I think it's a little more difficult and tricky to do the face with just this palette because I think that's a lot more dependent on your skin tone, the depth of your skin, etc. In addition, in terms of practicality, having a super skinny pan on this side, while I understand why, because that's a more concentrated formula, you don't need as much product, it just makes it hard to use these for the face because you're gonna typically be using a larger brush. Some people, maybe they only do super narrow contouring, you know, on the nose, I think it's fine. But if you're trying to contour your forehead, your cheeks, your jawline, typically people use a bigger brush. Now, if you have a fan brush, I think that's gonna solve a lot of your problems on that front because the narrowness of the fan brush will fit in here while also giving you more freedom to cover a larger space on your face. The lips, I think, is where this is the most impractical, just because you're even more limited when it comes to your skin tone, skin type, preferences with colors to be on the lips, because I don't think a lot of these work. Obviously, you're going to exclude like these super gray toned shades. So I'm assuming you're not going to use the black shade, either of these two shades, or even this much more gray toned shade. If you have deeper skin or olive skin, then these other shades absolutely can be available to you, which is fantastic. Obviously, just because I don't fall in that category, it's just more limited for me, and that's it. Overall, I am impressed, even though I think there are limits to how truly universal, functional, and all-encompassing this palette is. I think it falls a little bit short of the claims that you can actually do all of these things really easily. But on the other hand, it goes a lot further than other palettes that are on the market that claim to be all-encompassing and universal and just everything in one palette. In addition, I've never seen a brand come out with that pomade type of formulation, which I give huge bonus points for because, like I said before, it's very rare that you come across something in the makeup space nowadays that's truly different and innovative. That is overall my experience. Those are my thoughts, my review for the Danessa Myricks new Groundwork Defining Neutrals palette. Please let me know in the comment section below what you think, comments you have, experiences you have, how you use the palette, questions, anything like that. I'll do my best to answer. I'm by no means, I'm not a trained makeup artist, so I am 100% sure that people with more makeup skills who do makeup more regularly and more dramatically than I do may have much wider range of use that they get out of this palette. So absolutely keep that in mind. But from someone who's more of an everyday user and wants to kind of get in and out and needs to get out the door most of the time for makeup application. That is my experience. I hope that this video is helpful to you. I hope that you enjoyed watching it. Thank you so much, as always, for taking the time to watch, and I'll see you in the next video.